As planned, Israel attacked Iran this morning, but official sources from both countries have only released limited information. There are also a lot of reports going around that are either false or based on speculation. We have looked at all the information we could find and put together a list of what we know about the attack, the reactions, the deaths, and other issues related to it. We have also looked at the reactions of countries that support both Israel and Iran. Please keep in mind that we are not a news service and do not have reporters in any countries. Because of this, we have tried to look at different news sources and draw conclusions from a variety of sources with different political views. Through looking at different news sources, we've tried to give a balanced view. We want you to share your thoughts, views, and any information with us and our community in the comments. Let's work towards a peaceful world where we don't have to report on or cover war-related events anymore. What took place today early on October 26, the Israeli Air Force attacked Iran from the air. They hit military bases in 3 provinces, hitting air defense systems, radar sites, and factories that make missiles. This comes after months of rising tensions between Iran and Israel, which were caused by recent attacks and retaliations between the two countries. Israeli officials said the mission's main goal was to lower the chances of a larger regional war by avoiding nuclear facilities, even though tensions were high and people around the world were calling for a calm down. Israel's airstrikes on Iranian military facilities caused only minor damage, and Iran promised to respond properly at a time of its own choice. Tehran said the hits didn't do much damage to their radar and missile systems. Officials in Iran played down the attack by saying that their defenses were able to stop some of the rockets. Iran's military leaders also said they might respond in kind at the right time, but they didn't give any specifics. Tehran has told people to only get news from official channels and called comments made by other media outlets misinformation. Western news coverage of the event shows that people from all political parties have had different reactions to Israel's recent attacks on Iranian military targets. This is especially true given the ongoing conflicts between Israel and groups backed by Iran. While US and European officials have mostly avoided direct public commentary, media discussions show that people have different opinions based on their party affiliations and national interests. Conservatives in Israel and allied countries like the US often say that Israel's military actions are needed to protect Israeli and regional security from Iranian missile threats and aggression. They say that Iran's growing military presence through proxies requires strong targeted responses to keep Israeli and regional security safe. Many people think that these actions are part of a larger plan to counter Iran's missile and drone capabilities, which have been used against Persian Gulf countries and US forces in Iraq. On the other hand, left-leaning groups in Europe, especially those that traditionally support diplomatic solutions, say that increasing military actions could make the region less stable, and they also call for restraint and stress the importance of diplomacy efforts. Indirectly supporting diplomatic measures to stop further aggression from both sides, they often call for a new dialogue involving all regional players. Some European parties also point out the risk that civilian populations could be hurt by these escalations and call for protection of non-combatant areas and adherence to international humanitarian standards. Let's stop for a moment. Could you help us? If you like what we post, please click the like button to help us get more views and leave your thoughts and feedback in the comments. Your participation helps us grow, so thank you. Different African countries and media outlets have had different reactions to Israel's recent airstrike on Iran. These reactions show different political ties and views on the ongoing tensions in the Middle East. Some leaders from the BRICS, especially Russia, have spoken out against the worsening of the situation. President Putin, for example, condemned both the attacks on Iran and the wider regional conflicts, especially in Gaza, and called for restraint and more attention to human rights problems on a global level. Russian news outlets paid close attention to Iran's answer, focusing on its calls for Moscow and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization to take a stronger stance against what Iran calls Israeli war crimes against Palestinians and other acts of aggression in the region. A lot of South African and other African news outlets agreed with this negative view, saying that the airstrike makes the already unstable situation in the Middle East even worse. In South Africa and some parts of sub-Saharan Africa, the humanitarian crisis in Gaza was tied to the wider violence in the region. This made people want for diplomatic action to stop things from getting worse and to protect BRICS efforts to keep the region stable. Some African leaders also stressed how important it was to seek peace to avoid instability that could hurt economies and political ties between countries. China stayed out of the conflict and told both Iran and Israel to calm down and avoid further violence. China's foreign ministry stressed how important it was to keep the Middle East stable, since it is a key area for China's energy imports and infrastructure investments under the Belt and Road Plan. In addition, China said it would keep a close eye on things because it wants to keep its power and stability in the area. India replied by calling for peace and stability in the area again. The Indian Ministry of External Affairs made it clear that India's top goal was to still important is the safety of its people in the area and the smooth flow of energy imports. Even though India has good political and strategic ties with both Israel and Iran, it is important to be careful right now. Indian officials privately worried about how rising tensions would affect their big population of people living abroad in the Middle East. Turkey responded more strongly because it has a history with the area and a tense relationship with Israel. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan blasted the airstrikes and asked everyone in the region to work together to stop Israel from doing what it is doing. The way Turkey acts is influenced by its support for Palestinian causes and a larger plan to balance out Israel's power in the region. Erdogan warned that Israel's continued attacks could make the Middle East less stable and asked countries like Russia and Iran to stand up to Israel's actions in Syria and Iraq. In response to recent Israeli military actions, the General Staff of the Iranian Armed Forces said that Israel had carried out limited strikes on Iranian military sites while using US-controlled airspace in Iraq. According to the statement, early Saturday morning, Israeli jets stationed about 100 kilometers from Iran's border fired air-launched missiles at SES in Iran. It is said that these strikes did some slight damage to Iranian radar stations in Ilam Kestan and near Tayin. These stations have since been fixed. The statement also said that many of the incoming missiles were spotted and stopped by Iranian air defenses, and Israeli planes were not allowed to enter Iranian airspace. The Iranian military stressed that it had the right to react to these attacks whenever it thought was best. It also said again that there should be a permanent ceasefire in Gaza and Lebanon to protect civilians and avoid more deaths. Iran also told the US to stop supporting Israel's actions, saying that if the conflict doesn't end, it could have worse effects on the region. A spokeswoman for the Iranian government, Fatem Mohajirani, praised the country's air defense units for the quick and effective response to recent Israeli attacks on Iranian military sites. She said that the actions of the defense were a source of national pride for Iranians and that the people of Iran deeply trust and are proud of their country's defense capabilities. Referring to government reports in her speech, she said that the attack did not cause much damage and urged people to ignore false rumors and pictures being spread in some media outlets. Instead, she told people to trust official sources for accurate news. She also said that these hostile actions have no effect on Iran, saying that things are stable in the country and that flights and other activities are going on as normal. This comes after a large-scale Israeli airstrike that involved over 100 planes, including F-35 Adir stealth fighters. Reports say that fighters recently attacked areas around Tehran and Karaj, focusing on Iranian military sites to keep things from getting worse. The first hits were meant to cut off Iran's air and radar defenses. Israeli sources stated that about 20 sites, such as missile bases and air defenses, were hit, clearing the way for future attacks on specific military installations. Israel did not target Iran's nuclear facilities as the Biden administration had asked, however. Iran's reaction played down the incident, saying that it only caused minor damage and that Tehran itself was unaffected, with civilian airports still running normally despite the situation getting worse. It will be hard for Iran to react without making things worse, since retaliatory moves could make things worse in the region. This airstrike comes after ongoing regional tensions, such as Iran's recent missile strikes in response to the killings of important figures, and proxy wars involving Hezbollah and Hamas have made the long-running rivalry between Israel and Iran even stronger. IDF bases were hit by Israeli airstrikes this morning, focusing on important installations and missing nuclear sites. Tensions between the two countries have been rising for months, with Iran saying the damage was small and planning to fight back at the right time. Allied countries had a range of responses. Conservatives in the West backed Israel's actions for the sake of regional security, while some Europeans called for calm and negotiations. Nations gave their negative opinions, especially about the plight of civilians in Gaza. The situation is still fluid, and both Israel and Iran face big problems in the region as they try to deal with this heightened conflict. That's all for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If our content spoke to you or inspired you, please show your support by liking it and subscribing to stay connected with our community.